So your organization is trying to improve every aspect of the parks and the different arenas in that big area of the Jefferson Westside.
And we, as a neighborhood, we strongly advocated for affordable housing. The idea is that ideally the neighborhood association is keyed into the network of the larger organizations, whether it's 4J or whether it's nonprofits or the city or the county. And so people don't know what to do or what to
Yes.
expect. And a lot of times it's managing expectations, dealing with
Sure.
government.
Hello, everyone. Gary Raze with Eugene Spotlights. And today I have the honor to be interviewing Ted Coopman of the Jefferson Community Group. And I'm excited to hear about what the group is and what is your function.
Well, we're Jefferson Westside Neighbors, and we're a chartered city neighborhood association. And so our area encompasses roughly from 7th to 18th in Chambers to Lawrence with a slight jog up to Willamette on the south end.
Okay. So population-wise, there's several thousand people in that little pocket.
Yes, we are actually outside the university, we are the densest neighborhood in Eugene.
Saying that, I suspect that you have a lot of things that the community can bring to you for questions about certain aspects of, or do you have a set of things that you try to accomplish with the group?
Well, the role of the neighborhood association, really, neighborhood associations in Eugene, is to kind of act as an interface with the city and the county and other organizations. We, of course, have Lane Event Center in the middle of the neighborhood, so we
Yes.
work with the county all the time. And really, it's people don't really know how to interface with the city or city services. And then we bring in like planning staff and other types of public works, like for the work that was being done on West 11th right now, and then what's going to be happening on Polk, and um, and then things developments at Lane Event Center with their new development 20-year development plan. We also advocate for the parks. We have established groups for all of our parks, and so we work with parks and open space rather closely in order to bring development to those parks.
So your organization is trying to improve every aspect of the parks and the different arenas in that big area of the Jefferson Westside area. Are some of the things that an individual that lives in the community, what would they come to you for a frustration of something?
Usually what happens is that they're having a particular problem and that they are unsure how to solve that problem, or they feel there's something they want to accomplish. So basically since our funding is very, very limited from the city, is that it's mostly we do things on volunteer basis, and then we can go and we also apply for grants and things like that for different projects, like did a mural at Charles Mulligan Park. We did a street safety project. We did a tree inventory. We built the dog off leash area at Jefferson Park as a neighborhood, and Wayside Park on 15th at Charlton, which is a little pocket park. And so we do those kind of projects. If they're having an issue, unsure where to go with the city, in order to figure out to deal with the problem, whether it's public safety, what are their rights as homeowners or renters, things like that.
I'm thinking you're a good conduit basically between the city and the homeowner, as far as it would probably be more easy for a regular person in that community to come to you first, as opposed to trying to manipulate the city, different areas to go to as far as
Yes.
issues.
The idea is that ideally the neighborhood association is keyed into the network of the larger organizations, whether it's 4J or whether it's nonprofits or the city or the county. And so people don't know what to do or what to
Yes.
expect. And a lot of times it's managing expectations, dealing with
Sure.
government. But what's really important to know is that as a neighborhood, we are 75% renters in our
Oh,
neighborhood.
good to
So
know.
there's a lot of, it's a very diverse neighborhood. I mean, there are houses
Yes.
in that neighborhood that sell for 700, $800,000, but yet there's a lot of naturally occurring affordable housing, houses that were bought decades ago, and especially a lot of mom and pop kind of landlords
Hmm.
that'll own like a
Hmm.
half a dozen houses or something like that. And then we do have some larger apartment buildings, multifamily homes on the fringes, and then we also have there's lots of like fourplexes and things like that that are scattered in the neighborhood.
And growing all the time. I see where a house may be leveled and all of a sudden the fourplex goes in its place.
We really haven't had a lot of that kind of redevelopment
Okay.
because the people who purchase houses generally in the neighborhood, they're it's very specific. They want to live in a historic neighborhood with historic homes with the big trees that's
Yes.
walkable and rideable on their bikes. It's easy to get to the university. It's easy to get to downtown, Holt Center, places like that. We've also actually the big development is right now is at Ollie Court, which is a Homes for Good um, affordable housing complex and early learning center, which is at 13th and Chambers, which is the old Naval Reserve site, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
we, as a neighborhood, we strongly advocated for affordable housing and ran the public process and worked closely with Homes for Good. So we're really excited. That's going to be, I believe, 80 units of affordable housing for a combination of disabled seniors and then families who will use the Head Start program.
Boy, that's a very important project. Speaking of projects, you have a lot of them. You're working with parks, you're working with builders, you're working with the government agencies. How do you prioritize those projects?
Well, most things are driven by volunteer labor and neighbor interest.
Okay.
So we have that. We also have the idea that we have a charter and bylaws that we follow that indicate what we do and what we focus on. So, for example, neighborhood associations are supposed to be very keyed in on land use issues. So, if there's going to be permits or other public process, we generally run that process. And so the city will come to us for that, or the county will come to us for that. And then a neighborhood representation on like the Lane Event Center visioning work group, which just wrapped up its work on the 20-year plan with neighborhood representative for that project. So it comes down to where we see interest, neighbor interest in
Okay.
things, and then the availability to mobilize resources, mostly in terms of volunteer labor. And then we focus a lot on outreach. You are holding one of our mailed newsletters, which unfortunately are going to be greatly reduced because we've taken a pretty serious hit for our funding from the city.
This
And
is
the
a,
cost of a newsletter like that has gone up quite a bit.
I was going to ask you about that.
No, I mean that to send that to every address in the neighborhood, and that's put together entirely with volunteer labor.
Yes.
It's just printing and postage is almost $5,000.
This is a wonderful magazine. And so how many people do you send this out to, do you think?
It goes to 200 addresses in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So that's the one way we can get to everybody is through direct mail. And then
Hmm.
we've been growing. We have an e-news and events email newsletters that come out once a month, and we're just about approaching 1,000 subscribers. Actually, Neighborhoods USA, which is a national neighborhood association
Hmm.
group, we in for 2025 that newsletter was ranked third nationally, and our e-news, our electronic newsletters, was first place nationally.
Wow. But e-news would be really a much less expensive way to go, wouldn't it be?
It's about $27 a month
Yeah.
for the subscription, and it's hard because, of course, it's even at 1,000 addresses, it's not nearly the kind of reach that we would really need. The city is very active in terms of wanting to contact and engage with renters, but renters are notoriously difficult to get engaged with.
And there's a,
It's weird. It's an American cultural thing.
well, and a lot of it is they move in and they move out as well. They're not, some of them have been there for years, but many of them are more fluid as far as moving to other areas as they get older.
Yes.
This I can see is quite a an accepted thing in their neighborhood. I bet you don't get a lot of feedback. Like, I mean, there's so many people that are reading this, but you don't get feedback from them. But they certainly appreciate getting this and on a monthly basis. But you're going to cut this down.
Well, we usually we do 3 newsletters a year, but right now that just came out and there is no more funding for the fiscal year
Okay.
for newsletters. We kind of, because they changed their allocation formula, which is going to be a problem because the thing is they want us to do more outreach and better outreach, but we're really not
But
getting the
but the
funding or the
funding goes
tools.
away. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's That's typical. So tell me about this particular pamphlet. What is this about?
Well, we have Historic District Task Force, which was started several years ago, and it's the idea of promoting historic Jefferson Westside because we have over 1,000 buildings in the neighborhood that qualify as historic, which means they're over 50 years old. There was a pretty extensive survey that was done of all those buildings in the 1990s, and at the time there was a recommendation of establishing one or more historic districts, but the city never acted on it.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we are updating. We've rephotographed all those houses, and people can visit historicjeffersonwestside.org. We have an ArcGIS interactive map, so you can see where all the houses are.
Okay.
You can search for Queen Anne's or Craftsman bungalows or houses that were built in the 1890s or whatever, and then you can click on the map and pictures will come up. So that was our first. We've gotten a couple of different grants, and we're working with a consultant on that. And now we're working into the next phase, which is to create a story map and historical narrative for the neighborhood.
And of course, the Jefferson neighborhood, other than the right there around the university, that is the oldest neighborhood, and that and Blair is probably the two oldest
Yes.
neighborhoods in Eugene.
Us and the Whitaker, we have houses that that date from the 1850s forward.
Wow.
Although interestingly enough, which is kind of hard when you get older, is that when you have a lot of the mid-century modern, like what is it? I think the Jade Court garden apartments or whatever are considered historic now because over 50 years you can qualify as a historic structure. And so now a lot of that mid-century modern, like Wheeler Pavilion at Lane Event Center, if it meets certain criteria and is a good example of what would be considered period or historic architecture. And it's important to remember that when people look at a Queen Anne or a Victorian now, and they're like, oh my God, that's so neat, that's really cool and historic. There was a point in time where that was 30 or 40 years old. It was just an old building. So it's really important to be forward thinking and to realize that the greenest building is a building that already exists. And so it's much better environmentally and economically to update a building than to tear it down and replace it because, of course, everything goes to the dump and then concrete and trucks and everything creates more carbon.
Can you give us any hint of what the 20-year plan is incorporating?
For Lane Event Center, it was a really good process, which is something that rarely happens, that you bring in a consultant and you'll be like, that was money well spent. I've been doing this for about almost 10 years and I've never had that experience, but the consultants did a really good job. And between the public process and what the group of stakeholders on the visioning committee, which is like Travel Lane County and the home show and the lumber conference and things like that, is that basically we had a pretty good consensus on moving forward. It's not really a plan, it's the plan of a plan. So basically it's a way of looking at Lane Event Center conceptually and then using that to move it forward. Better integration with the neighborhood so it looks less like an industrial park. More multi-use facilities as opposed to specific use facilities, looking at the possibility of some development, like I would really like to see a food truck pod.
Yes.
So things to bring people in all the time. And there's talk of maybe a small hotel because in order to bring in, it's an enterprise operation, so it has to make the money in order to do the work on it. So the hotel would open up a lot more conventions and conferences, expanding and improving the conference space. And so that's where we're moving forward. Any specific development on site would be subject to any kind of public process you would normally have. But now we have a framework that pretty much everyone has agreed on that we can move forward, which leans more towards structures that have multiple uses. So flexibility is the key.
Well, the Lane County Fairgrounds they have the animal sections and all, they have but I see that whole area shrinking. It seems to be, they're building around it a little bit. They have another big, well, I think you described it, some buildings going up just east of the fairgrounds.
Yeah, well, that's quite a ways. That's
okay.
Probably 3 or 4 blocks. Right now, Lane Events Center Fairgrounds is 52 acres. A small portion of it was donated to Homes for Good for the Keystone, which is permanent supportive housing.
Mm-hmm.
But the county is intent on keeping that space intact and maintaining it as a public facility for events.
If someone wants to join a meeting or join your organization or have something on an agenda item that wants to work with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, email is usually the best way. So they can email us at jwneugene@gmail.com. And then we are jwneugene.org.
Sure,
So
because
actually, if you just search, you just find
it'll
us.
come up.
Yeah.
And we'll also post that on the bottom of our video as
Oh,
well.
great.
So, gosh, this has been interesting, and there's a lot of good things that your organization is responsible for. And I think Eugene needs to know about. That's why we're doing this. They need to know all the different avenues that they can see that's in their city. And your Jefferson area neighborhood is certainly doing a good thing that'll probably be followed, I bet you, by other areas like the Whitaker in the future because of what you accomplish. So at that point, Ted, I want to thank you for coming here and expressing what you know. You're the kind of the head honcho, aren't you?
The
At
chair
the
of the
moment.
chair of the executive board.
Okay. All right. Well, again, Eugene Spotlights, we got a great interview today, and we'll see you next time. Gary Raze with Remax Integrity. You take care.